So when it came to Russia, Russia was on its knees. I wanted to help bring Russia back off its knees. I wanted major loans, debt relief, and so forth to get Russia back on its feet. That was viewed as kind of an absurdity by those who view the world as a zero-sum game. Why would we ever do that? Was the basic response. That's ridiculous. We've got them where we want them. Now, what we know is that the practical debate started within the Clinton administration on NATO. And the question was, well, what to do? Should we disband NATO? Should we welcome Russia into NATO? Should we emphasize the Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe, the OSCE? Or should we build NATO? And this debate took place 1994, 1995. It pitted Madeleine Albright on one side, Bill Perry, the Secretary of Defense, on the other side of Secretary of State Madeleine Albright. And in the end, the Albright position prevailed. Clinton, as always, had domestic short-term political motives, thought it would be good for the Polish-American community, and so on. But whatever it was, he came down on the side of Albright. Bill Perry thought about resigning. He said this was a cataclysmic mistake. After decades of virtual brinksmanship and often to the brink of nuclear war with the Soviet Union, we need to build confidence. He was doing that. He was meeting his Soviet counterparts. He said, why break all of this? Of course, George Kennan in 1997 famously wrote that this would be the most consequential error of the post-Cold War period. It would put us on a path to a new confrontation. And I think Kennan was the greatest scholar-statesman at that point. He had been on various sides of this debate since 1946, of course. But in any event, he was very, very clear. There were dozens of senior U.S. diplomats that said at the time, don't do this. This will just create trouble. But the idea really was, come on. Russia is so weak. It is so dependent on us. Anyway, we won, they lost, we go on. And the first move of NATO enlargement was Poland, Hungary, and the Czech Republic in 19. And I think actually Russia swallowed hard. It resented it. It viewed it as contrary to the spirit of everything that had been discussed from 1990 onward. But these were countries away from Russia's borders. Things got worse in the next years. It certainly started with the NATO bombing of Belgrade, which was really an outrageous policy. It's a complete blot on American foreign policy and on Madeleine Albright. It was a deliberate war, whether to teach Milosevic a lesson, even though he was absolutely ready for many compromises, or whether it was to teach Holbrooke a lesson, because there's another theory which has a lot of credibility that she wanted to break any agreement that Holbrooke was negotiating with Milosevic in 1999, because if he succeeded, he would be the Secretary of State under Al Gore starting in 2001. So there's lots of gossip about this, but this was a disaster. And from the Russian point of view, this was an outrage. NATO bombing a European capital, a close ally of Russia and a historical, cultural ally of Russia, to break Serbia in two. And that was the next step. It has gone basically on that path from 1999 until today. And so it's not really right, in my view, that there were the kind of good guys that I'm more aligned with, the kind of bad guys, the neocons. There was a view that I think is a quite deep state view, consistent, carried out from the mid-1990s, first identified in 1992, implemented starting in the mid-1990s onward, lobbied for by the military-industrial companies led by Lockheed Martin starting in 1996 for NATO enlargement, with great boosterism of none other than Joe Biden, of course, who's been at that particular game for a long time.